case. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Board Education and Business Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 28th, 2020 to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people where we're grateful to live in our home. First item is the adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda as it's written? Seeing none. All hands go up. Thank you, Trustee Kimmer and Trustee Spilsbury. Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes of the November 26, 2019 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. Any questions about those minutes? Trustee DeGroot, you move your hand. Thank you. Trustee Norman, thank you for seconding that. All those in favor? Action list. Mr. Sandquist.
The weather is still prohibiting the completion of the Rainbow Crosswalk project. It's just too wet, so that'll resume in spring.
You hope.
Before the rain stops.
Any questions about the weather? Okay, thank you. No additions and delegations, but we do have three groups going forward tonight under education. Sherry Kinney and Rich Reddy. Yes, I thought I saw a podium over there, but I guess I didn't.
Yep.
You can stand at the front there, or you can grab that podium and.
Brenda Lee's
Sherry, jump on. Oh, and Brenda.
Okay.
And Brenda. And
Hello,
welcome.
I'm Sherry. I know a lot of you in the room. I would say most of you in the room. I was just saying to Brenda that I'm a little bit nervous to do this, and then I look around, I've got a lot of friendly faces in the room, so I'm still nervous. So let's just roll. Let's just roll with it. Okay.
We're all friendly.
So I just want to tell you a few of the things that I'm working on lately and what I do generally. I'm the Library Learning Commons Coordinator. So my name has, my position has Library Learning Commons right in it. And one of the main things I do is support the teacher librarians. So I do that by facilitating professional learning, developing consensus regarding LLC procedures, and assisting with resource selection and evaluation. And I also am available to teach alongside them. Some of the things we've been working on are the TL learning sessions, schools, school administrators, and teacher librarians have been very generous to give a half an hour of their time on the first Wednesday of the month to meet and learn together. So we meet from 1:30 to 3:30, learn together to expand our capacities with ADST and multiple literacies. Anything that we can do to support the teachers and the students in the learning communities. Literacy events, I coordinate the Drop Everything and Read event. And thank you, some of you in the room were so kind to go up to school, actually lots of you. So thank you very much for that. New this year, coming up February 19th, is I Read Canadian. I Read Canadian Day. So stay tuned to that, and your teacher librarians will be, this is for these guys. Yes, I know. Your teacher librarians will be telling you more about that and what they're going to do for that. Also working on something called Reconciliation in the Learning Commons. The idea being that teacher librarians became aware of their shared discomfort with the way the traditional library system handles Indigenous resources. One thing that we were finding is that oral traditions, we were finding in the Dewey system right next to Peter Pan. And that close spread there, yeah, Barb's going, ooh. Yeah, it's technically where it, Dewey says it belongs, but Dewey is a very old system and very colonial. So we have the system, so we're trying to massage it and tweak it to do what we can to be more appreciative and more respectful. So to that end, we got a collaboration grant. This is our second year of it. The DLC personnel teacher librarians and members of the Indigenous Ed Department, including Mary Peter and Dolly Sylvester, giving us direction on how we can move. One thing would be, if that nugget of oral tradition is astronomy, like when Raven stole the sun, then we're considering why wouldn't we have it with regular astronomy books, because it is a nugget of teaching. And we feel that that would be the more respectful way of doing it, rather than having it next to Peter Pan. So we're considering all sorts of things like that. LLC websites. Each school library, Learning Commons, now has a website or a web space attached to the school website. The high schools mostly already had them, but now the elementaries have them. So students and teachers can access very quickly and easily the digital resources that we have licensed to our schools, and any news and other links that the teacher librarian wants to put in there. One thing that's a little bit outside of my role as Library Learning Commons Coordinator is the sensory story path. About a year ago, I think, Brenda Lee and Rosanna Jackson and I became aware of sensory paths. You know what sensory paths are? Maybe if I describe them a little. If you see a hallway in a school and it's got designs stuck down to it, and the kids follow along, they're either crouching or hopping and doing various things like that. We thought that would be a good thing to do, and then we thought, well, of course we'll have a Coast Salish flavor to it. And then someone said, well, why don't we actually make a story? I think that might have been George. George Seymour is in our group, and he's gifted us the story, the Cowichan, or Sumena's story of creation. So we'll be following that, and they have the rainbow mist and the rumble and the tumble. Remind me, Brenda, if I'm going off. So it'll be a sensory path. It'll be a story path. It will address Indigenous vocabulary, geography, as well as the story of the language, and the basic self-regulation that a sensory story path develops. So we hope to have this in place by the end of the year, using Alexander's primary wing as a pilot. There are other schools in the district who have already told us we want this, and we want it like yesterday. So we're working on that. So I also support the District Learning Commons. I do that by curating the DLC collection, anticipating and responding to teacher needs regarding the curriculum. So I help choose the resources, build the kits, provide curricular supports, and collaborate with other departments. So we are working on online resources so that in our current and future educational environments, that's critical. So we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to do that easily. The book bonanza is something that's dear to my heart. 4 or 5 or 6, I think, of the coordinators and helping teachers have each chosen a book or a set of books to study with up to 8 people from anywhere in the district. So it's a huge book club, but with all different books, and then at the end, we all meet together and talk about our books and share our learning that way. And all of the selections are full. So this is our 2nd year doing that. We found it really valuable, lots and lots of learning going on. Overdrive, you've probably heard of Overdrive. It's a digital platform. It's a digital platform for audio and ebooks. We're not finding a lot of uptake or interest from students for ebooks, but what we do notice that we are desperate for are audiobooks. So we're looking into this as an assistive technology. So when kids are studying certain books, they can also listen. They can read the books orally, which will help them. So we're doing a pilot project with a couple of schools to see how it goes, and then hopefully to expand. And then one of the other things I do is provide Catalyst support. I'm lead contact in that I coordinate the schedule, oversee the budget, and support the event teams. And you can see those listed. Those are a lot of the extra kind of things that go on in the district for kids. Do you have any questions?
I do, Sherry, and I'll turn over to the rest of the trustees. I understood a little while back we went from libraries and each of us go to Learning Commons. But
Yes.
you have in your handle, Library Learning Commons. Why is the library still there?
That is the way the job was presented, Library Learning Commons. But I think it is about not throwing the library out with the baby out with the bathwater, embracing what we know as library and just expanding it and changing the focus to Learning Commons or to Library Learning Commons. So in different jurisdictions, it's known as different things. And this district, senior admin, chose Library Learning Commons.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustees, any questions of Sherry? Trustee Spilker.
Thank you for the outline, it looks great. I'm just looking at the Catalyst support events or activities. Are any of those ones that trustees would be really interested in, or people interested in seeing that trustees have support for them?
I think all of them.
Oh. Okay.
Some of them are ongoing. There are a couple of new ones this year. Film Fast is going to be new. The Brain Bowl is going to be new. But one I think that would be really worth coming to and seeing the celebration of learning that's gone on over a long period of time is the Couchin creates, constructs, and connects. I'm looking at Brenda because she supports this as a coordinator. Each of these activities or each of these teams has a teacher leader leading the team, and it's got a coordinator to support. So Brenda supports this one. Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about this one?
It's a fabulous day to be able, just like what Sherry's saying, to celebrate the learning that's gone on, and not just the always the typical learning that we talk about, but different ways. That's why we have such a vast name to it. It can be in a way that you are creating something that more than just your typical written essay. You can see artwork, you can see essays, you might see, we're really trying to encourage a group right now who's working on costume design to bring some of those costumes. So all of those pieces of learning to be acknowledged and celebrated. And another key piece to that is just the connection amongst all of those artists to be able to connect across schools. And last year was our first year that we did it, and we were saying, wouldn't it be lovely to have had trustees at this event? And so that was, an invitation is coming your way.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can tell you
And
the
there's
date.
a performance aspect as well. There's a static part,
Yeah.
so things that you see and can interact with, and then one that you view.
Any other questions, trustee? Sherry, thank you so very much for your time and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Rich.
No, we're good.
Can I go next? Is that okay? Or does that, sorry, you're the chair.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
What are the
Brenda.
rules? I'm gonna break the rules, I'm sure. Okay, and that showcase, the date for that is actually on Tuesday, June the 2nd, if you want to save the date before your invitation comes. Perfect. Good. Right. Thank you for having me. My name is Brenda Lee, and I am the Early Learning Coordinator for the district. And I've had the pleasure of doing that for 7 years now, believe it or not. Still feels like the role changes and evolves on a daily, weekly, monthly basis based on the needs of teachers and our community and what's going on. I was described before in a meeting as someone who has big love for little people. So those that are leading up to 8 years old, that's kind of my realm, and I love to be there and I love to be playing with the children. I brought for you today not an exhaustive list, but a list of some of the things that I do work on. I'm sorry to Jason and Robin, I don't have quite enough copies, but I can get you one after if you are so willing to wait. So I just thought that I'd go over the types of things that I do in a typical day. And as I said, it changes all the time. For example, the month of February is our EDI data collection month. So that's kind of on my brain right now, and I'm doing a lot around training the teachers to be able to administer the EDI, connecting with UBC and the Human Early Learning Partnership there, and getting that data to them, and then working on the administration pieces around billing and all of that. So that's busy coming up in February. However, my role really has two separate parts. And with the new early learning framework, they're beginning to come together a little bit more. So those two parts are how I support families and community, and that's our families 0 to 5 prior to coming to school. That support takes a variety of different measures to get done, but really we're supporting families in learning how to be loving and attached parents with their children, to recognize the strengths that they already have, to connect them with resources that exist in our communities, and to give them opportunities to play with their children. So some of the things that I do to support community on that, you may know that the Success by 6 funding changed recently, and so our Couch and Early Years table was a little bit up in the air, and what are we going to do with that now that we don't have that funding stream? It seemed like the right fit for the role of the early learning coordinator to move into coordination of that table as well. It's a really great spot. We meet once a month, community resources together to look at things like the EDI data and how are we actually supporting our communities across the district by putting in different types of resources, such as our Strong Start programs. We have Mother Goose, I'm a part of the community collaborative for that, and making sure that we have those programs out in community. Story time, family reading hour, Roots of Empathy, those types of things are ways that I support the community. And then the other part of my role is supporting classroom teachers. Something that I brought for you today is a gift and some homework. So you don't have to do your homework. I didn't always do my homework. But I did for today, though. Only been stressing for a while. So the ministry has just updated the early learning framework. I don't know if you've seen a copy of it or not yet. It is available online, but I brought you one for today. And the early learning framework really is an opportunity to re-envision our early learning spaces and to really give permission to teachers to do what they've been doing for a while now, for a long time, and that's to really support play-based learning. When we talk about play-based learning, sometimes people kind of get a little bit abrupt. They think that somehow means we're not talking about basic literacy and numeracy skills. Literacy and numeracy that's our moral imperative. We have a mandate. We have to do this. It's super important. But we can do that in a way that gives kids the opportunity to learn in a developmentally appropriate way. So this early learning framework describes the types of pedagogies that we're asking teachers to incorporate into their learning. I support that through after-school sessions. I've done a few now on the Ignite and Bite on the early learning framework. I've done a few lunch and learns, and when schools ask to connect at staff meetings or different types of things, I can take that piece to them. Going over the list of things that I just want to make sure you get all the things. Social and emotional well-being, that is foundational to children's learning. Richard Matthews, our district counselor, says you can't bloom until you Maslow. Is that making sense for you? So I love that, because I just think that social and emotional learning really is foundational, especially when we're talking about attachment with our caregivers in the early years and then moving into schools. And not all of our kids, we're finding from the EDI, are coming with those same skill sets that we used to see them coming with, or that we would hope that they would come with. So some of those supports that we're putting into place to support that is the CALM curriculum. Comm Curriculum is a emotional literacy program that was developed out of the Fraser Valley Child Development Center on the mainland, and we are now up to 27 of our kindergarten classrooms using this curriculum. So kids are getting the language around feelings and emotions and connections and really learning at that beginning stage on how to connect with others. Changing Results for Young Children. Have you heard of that initiative? So Changing Results for Young Children is another social and emotional learning program that the ministry is supporting right now that I am the district lead on. It's super cool because it brings together a group of people that don't often get to be in the same room and have conversations. So those groups are community, early childhood educators, our Strong Start facilitators, and our kindergarten teachers. And so what we're talking about in those spaces is not only how do we support the social and emotional well-being of our small children, but how do we check in and make sure that our social and emotional well-being is in a place where we're able to actually support others? Because we know when our big people are doing better, our little people are doing better. So that Changing Results for Young Children supports that. Roots of Empathy is another way to support that I support the social and emotional well-being. Two things for that that I wanted to highlight for you. The first is that I am on the steering committee, so that's cool. I get to be a part of where the programs are going and making sure that I see the big picture for it. But when I was asked to take on that role, I said only if I get to facilitate. So that, I think, is like the pinch me days when I get to go to work and I'm actually working. I get to be here and hang out with the family and a babe and a group of kindergarten children and learn about loving attachment. Super cool. So that's Roots of Empathy. There's also some collaboration grants that I'm a part of that are going on in our district right now that are looking at the social and emotional well-being of children. One is a screen that kindergarten teachers are asking for, saying, you know what, we're telling a story. We have a narrative about what we're saying is going on with kids, but we don't have the data behind it. So they're developing a screen in order to be able to have some numbers behind what we're saying. So working on that. Another one, it's a really cool project called Stories and Stitches. And so we're incorporating what we know about oral language and storytelling and that importance with how does giving kids the ability to tell stories and those skills and develop their oral language support their social and emotional well-being. So working on a variety of different projects like that. Ready, Set, Learn, and Ready, Set, Go. You may have heard of those. This is another opportunity if you're looking for a field trip and something to come and do. I can get the dates for you. Ready, Set, Learn fairs are 4 community events that we have in our district, one in each of the zones. And they are basically a health and education fair where community resources line the outside of a gym. And it basically goes community resource, play-based activity. Community resource, play-based activity. So families with children ages 2 to 5 can come. It's drop in. Some people stay the whole time, 12:30 to 4. And they are not only learning and seeing play modeled, but they're connecting with resources along the way. And also we take registration for kindergarten and those types of things happen there. And I also help to coordinate and plan all of the Ready, Set, Go events. And those are the by invitation only events to those who have registered for kindergarten. They are invited back to their school to meet the teachers, see the space, and sort of get a feel for what school will be all about. There's a variety of things on the list. I feel like I'm just making a list for you and I don't want to bore you to tears, but those are the types of things that I do to support early learning in the district. Do you have any questions?
So what is our homework you gave us?
To read them.
Oh, to read this? Okay.
It's actually this document, and I can't say that I really have a high list of work-related books on my nightstand, but this one is on my nightstand because it's such a beautiful read. It talks about reconciliation. It talks about supporting children in play. It talks about loving relationships, and it's got lots of pictures. So I like that.
Thanks. I have 2 more questions. Can I ask, how much of your time is dedicated to 0 to 5, and how much time is dedicated to K to 3?
When I first took this position, I was told that it's about 80% in community and about 20% in our K to 3s. That, depending on what day of the year you talk to me, it changes like for example, yesterday I spent the entire morning out at Discovery doing story workshop with a variety of kindergarten teachers and bringing in the resource teacher and different people. So I spent a whole morning doing that. And then I went back again today because I do Roots of Empathy there. And then I have another school that I'm going to for story workshop tomorrow. So this is like a really heavy week on being in schools. And then I'm not going to go to schools very much next week because I've got to get all that EDI stuff done. And if I'm not sitting at the computer typing it all in and connecting with UBC, it won't get done. So I would tell you, I try and stay close to that 80-20, but it varies depending on the month of the year.
And I had one more question, but I forgot it because I was listening to your explanation. Any other questions of Brenda before I ask my next question? Remember my next question? Trustee Crawford.
I'm reaching a bit because I didn't catch everything that you said, but you had, no, not you, it's me, really. You had talked about collecting the data that sort of matched teachers' understanding of their delivery. Does that ring a bell?
Are you talking around the social emotional learning
Yes.
screen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So, maybe I got this wrong. So often one starts with data and moves to conclusions. This is a little bit more interactive.
So what the teachers are finding is we're getting these cohorts of beans into their class and they're like, this is different than it was last year and even more different than it was the year before. And because our communities and our society is changing so much that this is becoming the trend to look at. We haven't historically looked for that data to be able to tell those stories in numbers. So these teachers are saying, you know what? I hear that if I have some data behind it, I might get some support. So let's connect on those two things. Not only that, but it gives teachers this screen that they're developing, gives them a really great place to start formatively. So when I'm getting to know my learners, I can say, in my class, 85% of them need to practice our sharing skills. We will, so then I know where to start rather than assuming they have these skills.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brenda, I remembered the question.
Okay.
Success by Six money
Yes.
used to be funneled through or organized or whatever through United Way.
Yes. United Way of the Lower Mainland.
So how did we lose that in the valley, or did it disappear across the
We
province?
didn't lose it in just the valley, it was a provincial decision, and so what actually happened was that money was their funding changed and it got pulled back, and they decided to incorporate new dollars in a different funding stream. So now when we talk about, and I'm looking to Cheryl to make sure I'm absolutely correct on this, when we talk about our mental health grant dollars and that mental health initiative, the Success by $6 have been wrapped up into that. Am I a little bit not correct?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to find the answer though, and I'm going to get it to you.
Okay.
I don't know why I did this when I did it. What happened? Okay, right.
So you managed to step in to where success, by leading the early years group or table, you're filling a void there. Are other districts taking such leadership? Do you have colleagues in other districts that are?
I do. One of the other pieces of my role is that I'm a part of the Island Early Years Network, and so I do get to meet about every 2 or 3 months with all of the other people who have my responsibilities in their district. And every district is finding a different approach to this new need. Some districts, they are stepping into that coordination role, but what you will find is that we're really lucky in our district, this is going to sound arrogant and I mean it not to have someone in this role in a full-time position. This doesn't happen across the districts, across the island. Sometimes I have to just do this when I'm in a meeting because they're like, you have how much time? So that so they might not have the same amount of time to take on that role is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Any other questions of Brenda? Thank you, Brenda. Rich, I'm not sure why Brenda took your spot. You're nice.
Because Richard is a very kind man.
I just weren't a very good arm wrestler.
Should have done rock, paper, scissors. This is mostly just so you have my name and contact in case you wish to to get a hold of me. My name is Rich Reddy. I'm a district helping teacher, kindergarten grade 12. Thanks for inviting us in today. After 25 years in the classroom, predominantly grade 6 and 7 in elementary and middle school, I found myself now in the second year of this role. And I get to play around with a number of my passions, one being numeracy or math, and the other ones being assessment and communicating student learning. Communicating student learning, what we often call reporting. And assessment is not just quizzes and tests, it's assessment to move student learning along. When I think about what I do, I reflect on some words. And the first word that comes to mind is part of that role name, the district helping teacher, and it's the helping part. And so what I do is strive to help. But to do that, I firmly believe it's the same in the classroom. We need to build relationship and build relationship with those learners. And a big part of that is through listening. So I listen. And I try to listen to compassionately, to seek understanding. Sometimes I need to listen to angst around changes that are happening in reporting, communicating student learning. It also gives us an opportunity to gather the what I'll call the street data. What's happening out there in the classrooms, in the staff rooms? What are the stories? How are they feeling? How can we help move forward? I always have to remember that the teachers that we work with are the product of a system that we're asking them to change. And that can be difficult. We tightly hold our beliefs and our ways, and letting go of them can be hard. And it can be a process. In fact, it can be likened to the grieving process. And I think we need to proceed with compassion, and sometimes compassionately disrupt it a little bit and have us think, pose those hard questions that allow us to have those discussions. In addition, then, is to be responsive to the needs. Whether those needs are, I need help in my classroom now, or responsive and proactive to what those needs might be next September. Because we've said this, now we need to put these things in place. And that's also part of it. So if I think about how that drives what I do, or what it looks like in the bigger picture, I really try to have about 50% of my time in schools and classrooms. In the classroom with kids. I love teaching. And I love teaching those kids. And being with them allows me to learn. And I think that's the other big word is learning. I learn along with the teachers and with the students. So when I go to a workshop, or when I read a book, or I read an article, or I look at a video of this particular math strategy and try to weave in some assessment into it, I now have a bunch of classes that I can go to and try that. It's not just my own, and it's wonderful. And I tell the kids that we're coming in and trying something together, see how it goes. The other, and related to that, this year, what I'm trying is trying to be more present in the school for a longer period of time. So instead of dropping in, parachuting in, sometimes called a one and done, come in and a teacher might invite you in and we do a lesson and then leave. I'm trying to stay there for 3 days in a row. So I was at Discovery, did all their grade 6, 7 classes over a period of 3 days. That allowed me to get there in the morning when teachers get there and have lunch with them in the staff room, listen to the chatter, stay after school, do the marking with them, do the assessing with them, And that can be quite powerful because it puts you as myself as a helping teacher on the same footing, in there with them, with all of the things that happen in the classroom. Now I do get to walk out at the end. I don't have to write reports, although I do help them. I don't have to phone the parents, but it does allow us to get close to the ground, if you will. The other roughly half of my time is spent, a good portion of it is around communicating student learning. We are moving forward in a number of initiatives around how we communicate with parents instead of reporting to parents, and how we involve the students, how we look at assessment as not being just an end point, but as part of the process. And that's I liken it to a ship. And the ship, it takes a long time for a ship to change course. And we work together helping that ship change course. So in that respect, I work a lot with organizing learning events for teachers, presenting those learning events, curating resources to allow them to access those, as well as troubleshooting sometimes when a report card format doesn't work, or what does this word mean, or how do I do this, or how do I move this arrow here, and how do I print these darn things. That's part of the job as well. But above all, it's a learning process. I go back 2 years ago when I was in the classroom and think of some of the things I was doing there and go, oh my gosh, I would do that a lot differently now. And if I went back in the classroom, I would change a lot of things I'm doing, of what I'm doing, just by the nature of what I learned from everybody that I work with, from as part of the learning team, and when I work with teachers out in the field. That's what I do, in a nutshell.
Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
So in the classroom, are you helping teach and the teacher's watching you, or are you watching the teacher and coaching?
It takes two forms. Often it is me teaching and they're watching, but we're trying to move that. That's the idea of I'll call it residency for lack of a better word, and that is a word that's used out there. The idea of, here's an idea and I might demonstrate it, and then tomorrow you do it and I'll be there to help and support. And then maybe the third day I'm working with the kids while the teacher's taking. That's the model I'd like to get to. It's getting there. I'm not there yet. That's something I'm striving for.
And is most of your clients are newer teachers, or do you actually go into the classroom with experience?
Oh, a wide range. Wide range, yes. I find sometimes some of the experienced teachers often will call me up because they're very confident and say, hey, come on, show me this new thing that you're doing. Or we're getting bogged down in multiplication. I don't know how to get it across to them. So no, it's a cross section.
Any other questions, trustees? Rich, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Claire, can I get on the... Is there a code? There we go. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all here today. So I get the privilege of talking about Coquitlam Elementary a little bit and sharing our school plan with you here today. And the timing is kind of perfect around this because Mike was in our school last month and came and did a nice little story of the district, and it was really a nice opportunity for us to highlight some of the things that we really value. So I hope that you guys had the opportunity to see that video. And this speaks a little bit to that. Now, before that, I just want to introduce Julie. So Julie's on the side there. So Julie, jump in as I'm going to talk about a few things. So this shot right here, I put it up there because this is Coquitlam. This is one of these great days that happen just before Christmas. We do a seasonal lunch, and it really, I want to show this picture because it talks really about what Coquitlam's all about, and that's about relationship and community and bringing the kids together in a way that we support kids. So it's kind of like, it is of course the foundation of the work that we do with kids and what we hold near and dear. Just some background, because some of you might not know Coquitlam that well, so I think that in the context of some of the things that I'm going to talk about here today, this gives you some perspective. So we as of today, we're 301 students. So what we see is our population fluctuates a little bit as the months tick on. Today, 301 students, 15 divisions. Of our 301 students, 61 students have the designation. So that's really quite high. So what we're looking at there is about 1 out of every 5 students has a designation at Coquitlam that we're looking to support in some different ways. We have a high number of vulnerable students, and so this has come out in the EDI data, that they are vulnerable, what we'd say, in the areas of readiness for school, social competence, language, cognitive development, physical health, well-being, socioeconomic factors. So just a number of factors that they're recognized as in need of some additional support. And we are a very diverse school, as most of you know as well. 65% of our student population are Indigenous learners. About 3% are new Canadians. And one of the things that is great when I can share with families when they're coming and getting to know Coquitlam, as I say, that we're really very quite lucky to have a diverse student population that reflects the community that we live in. Who am I talking about? This is who I'm talking about. And here's a great shot of our kids, and these are just some of our learners. And so it's always nice to kind of frame the great kids that we're working with. So a little bit about our plan and our goals. So I've been at Coquitlam for 4 years. And a couple of years ago, we really went on a little journey and tried to drill down to what's the work that we really need to do with kids. What do we really feel that we need to do? And 3 things came out. And the first one was much like Brenda spoke of actually earlier today. Was we are seeing that we have a lot of learners coming to us, and we recognize that those K learners that are coming to us, they might not be like K learners that were coming into the school 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They might not be K ready. And so we recognize that we need to adjust the way that we are working with those kids. So one of our school goals there is redesigning the way that we provide early interventions and provide education to the kids that are coming to Coquitlam Elementary. So we do that in a few different ways. We Joyful Literacy Program. We've been going on that journey now for the last couple of years and taking a look at how do we target support for our kids. Play-based learning, Brenda talked about that as well, and so how do we encourage our teachers and help the professional development of our teachers on that journey as well. Social-emotional learning, the CALM learning, targeted supports for our kids through SLP, ELL learning assistance programs. So it's really that first goal is focused on how do we meet the needs of our youngest learners and to start closing that gap between where they are when they're coming to us and as they're progressing along, if that gap is existing. So that's the first goal that we have. And again, who are we talking about? Here's a great picture here of some of our youngest learners, and you can see right there, they've been working on a project, and you can just see the smiles on those kids' faces. Our second goal. Staff at Coquitlam have recognized that at different times that what we see is some challenging behaviors that are presented. And, you know, if we talk to Richard Matthews, you know, one of the things that he's been talking to us about for a long time is behavior as a form of communication. So what are our kids telling us? And how can we understand that behavior a little bit more so that we can really reach the kids? So as a staff, we've been on a journey actually for a number of years, the Coheman staff, around a few things that you see at the bottom there. Trauma-informed practice. We have a number of kids at Coheman that have experienced lots of different forms of trauma. And trauma, you could identify that in different ways and define it in different ways. So it looks different for kids, but we need to be able to understand kids that are coming to us and what their needs might be. Self-regulation, that is a learning that the staff has been doing for a number of years as well, so that we can support kids on how they self-regulate. Growth mindset and resiliency through our Indigenous Education Inquiry, that has really come up a lot lately in terms of how do we develop a resiliency with kids. Understanding behavior, which I spoke of earlier, and some of the work that we do with Popper as well to really help us support our learners in our school. So that is our second goal that we're focusing on as well. Keeps jumping back here on me here. Now, when we talk about vulnerable kids, and some of you have probably heard of some of these programs, at Coheman, we've really woven in some really interesting programs in order to support kids too. And some of you might know of some of these programs and they might be not familiar with you. So just want to go through a few, like physical literacy. We have an opportunity to work with half of our school. We have a professional from the community. He works actually out at Valley View Martial Arts, and he comes to our school 3 days a week, and he works with the kids on coordination, core strength, and developing their physical literacy. Because a lot of our kids, they need that. They're not involved in athletics and sport, and so we're bringing that to them in a bit of a different way. We have Drumline. That's a program that helps with self-regulation, so it's a drumming program. You'll see a picture of that in just in a minute. We've been really fortunate that we've teamed up with Kids Sport in North Cowichan. And so lots of schools have different types of intramural programs. Well, Kids Sport actually comes into our school and volunteers time, and they run programs at lunch hour for us 2 days a week, which is a great opportunity for our kids. We do drumming and dance through our AVED department. We, Bikeworks and CYMHA have a partnership, and so our kids go down and do some cool things down at Bikeworks. Girl Power is a program that we have to support kids, particularly the girls that are needing connection. A lot of you have probably heard of the next three programs. We have a lunch program. We have approximately of our 301 students, about 118 students that are on our lunch program that we support every day through for lunch. Nourish Cowichan, it kind of first school that came that they kind of partnered with was Coheman. And so we have a really strong and wonderful partnership with Nourish Cowichan, and they really support us, particularly in the mornings where they're bringing in food that we're able to provide to the kids. And we've got a breakfast trolley that goes around, and we start, we try and support the kids right off the get-go and have them regulated and get some food into their bellies so that they're ready to learn and those smiles come on their faces. Rotary, also we have a starfish program, and so food goes home to families on the weekend. Another way that we can support families. Big Brothers and Sisters is in the program. VI Student Nurses is partnered with our school, and so they do some teachings at our school around health. And so Walton Health as well is partnered with our school. So I just put those up to show you that there's a lot of things going on at Coheman, a lot of things in order to support our kids. And this is just an example of one. This is Drumline at work. So these are the kids. This is the Drumline performance, but some of the kids were up there and performing. And so it was brought in as a way to help kids self-regulate. That's our second goal. And our third goal is we identified that a lot of kids don't learn in the traditional ways within the walls of a classroom. A lot of our kids need something different than that. So what we're looking for and trying to continue to develop is what are some authentic ways that kids can learn? And when we're doing those authentic ways, are we addressing some of the other factors that we know that we need to? Is it a nurturing environment? Do they feel connected? Is it an inclusive environment? So we're on a journey there to try and perhaps bring some different ways of learning to kids. And so just some ones here, some really neat pictures. So we have an outdoor ed program that runs at the school here. This fellow right here, his name is Mark Williams, he's one of our teachers. And Mark has a wonderful property where kids have been going out for the last 2 years, and different classes have been going through there and getting a really rich outdoor experience, learning in different ways. Of course, through our Ed department, Indigenous Education department, we have lots of different learning and guests that come in and do different workshops with our kids. Here's 2 of our students that are in that outdoor ed program, and when these kids come back in, it's just amazing seeing them coming back in off the bus and the smiles on their faces, and our teachers and our EAs coming in, and our EAs are saying, Mike, that was just the greatest thing. And so it's just so great looking at, what are some different ways that we can reach kids. This is an outdoor classroom day. So this is a day where all the learning occurred outside, and there was different activities going on. You can see here, this is a tech-related one. There's some spheros that they're commanding there. And so that's just another way of kids learning in a different way and kind of breaking down those walls of the classroom. Here we have some cedar stripping going on. So this was